Oakland, California. Autumn of 1965. The abandoned warehouse. District along the waterfront was a place where shadows had teeth and the fog, rolling in from San Francisco Bay, seemed to swallow sound itself. Rusted shipping containers stood like silent sentinels in the darkness, their corroded surfaces catching the occasional flicker of the single working streetlight that buzzed and sputtered at the edge of an empty parking lot. The smell of salt water, diesel fuel, and decay hung heavy in the midnight air, a perfume of urban abandonment that warned sensible people to stay away. This was territory, controlled by the demons. 6 men ruled these streets with a brutality that had earned them a reputation throughout Oakland's criminal underground. Their leader, Marcus Thompson, known to everyone as Big M, stood 6 feet 4 inches tall and carried 240 pounds of prison-hardened muscle beneath his leather jacket. A scar ran from his left eyebrow to his jaw, a souvenir from a knife fight he had won by crushing his opponent's skull against a concrete floor. He had served 7 years for aggravated assault and had emerged from San Quentin with connections, respect, and an absolute certainty that violence was the only language the world understood. His crew tonight consisted of 5 loyal soldiers, each one a veteran of countless street battles. They carried chains wrapped around their fists, switchblades tucked into boots, and the cold confidence of predators who had never encountered prey they could not devour. For 3 years, no one had walked through their territory after dark without paying tribute, one way or another. But on this particular night, someone had, from their position in the shadows between 2 shipping containers. Big M and his crew watched a small figure moving in the empty parking lot, an Asian man alone, apparently practicing some kind of martial arts routine in the dim circle of light beneath the flickering street. His movements were fluid, precise, almost hypnotic in their strange beauty. He seemed completely unaware of his surroundings, completely oblivious to the danger lurking just meters away. Big M smiled, his gold tooth catching a glint of distant light. Easy prey. A tourist who had wandered into the wrong neighborhood, the kind of target that made for a profitable night and an entertaining story. If you want to discover what happened when 6 armed street fighters surrounded the most dangerous man alive, and learn why this night became legend in Oakland's underground, stay until the end of this story. You will not regret it. The man in the parking lot was Bruce Lee at 25 years old. Bruce had recently moved to Oakland to open his 2nd martial arts school. During the day, he taught students the revolutionary principles of his developing combat philosophy. But at night, when privacy was essential and distractions impossible, he sought out isolated locations to push his training beyond anything he could practice in a classroom. This abandoned lot, with its concrete surface and atmospheric solitude, had become his private laboratory. He was aware of the gang watching him. He had sensed their presence the moment they arrived, felt their predatory attention like a cold pressure against his skin. His training had refined his awareness to a level that most people would consider supernatural. He knew there were 6 of them. He knew they were armed. He knew they were working up the courage to approach. He continued his training, his movements flowing from one technique to the next with a grace that belied their lethal purpose. Each punch, each kick, each subtle shift of weight was a calibration, a fine-tuning of the instrument that was his body. He breathed slowly, steadily, his mind entering the state of calm focus that transformed reaction into instinct. The gang emerged from the shadows. They spread out as they approached, forming a loose circle around Bruce. Chains clinked against denim. Switchblades snicked open with practiced efficiency. 6 figures, each one larger than their intended victim, each one confident in the mathematics of violence. 6 against 1, armed against unarmed. This was not a fight. This was a harvest. Big M stepped forward, positioning himself directly in front of Bruce. The size difference was almost comical. Bruce had to look up to meet the gang leader's eyes. Appearing fragile, vulnerable, utterly outmatched. Wrong place. Wrong time, Chinaman, Big M said, his deep voice carrying the casual menace of someone who had delivered this speech many times before. This is our territory. Nobody walks through here without paying the toll. Bruce stopped his training, but did not assume a defensive posture. His hands remained relaxed at his sides, his breathing unchanged. He regarded Big M with an expression of calm curiosity, as if observing an interesting but not particularly threatening phenomenon. The gang members exchanged glances. uncertain how to interpret this lack of fear. Their victims usually begged or ran, or at least showed the decency to tremble. This small man's composure was unsettling. "I have no money," Bruce said simply. "I am here to train. I suggest you leave and find your toll elsewhere." A moment of stunned silence. Then Big M laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the shipping containers. His crew joined in, their laughter carrying the nervous edge of men who sensed something wrong but could not identify what. Big M stepped closer, using his height to loom over Bruce. His hand dropped to the knife at his belt. "Little man, do you have any idea who you are talking to? Do you know what we do to people who disrespect us?" "I know exactly what you are," Bruce replied, his voice carrying no anger, no fear, only absolute certainty. "I know what you intend to do, and I am telling you, clearly and without hostility, that you should reconsider." Big M's face contorted with rage. In his world, disrespect was a capital offense. This small Asian man, alone and unarmed, was not just refusing to show fear. He was dismissing them, treating them as an inconvenience rather than a threat. "Get him," Big M snarled. "Teach him some manners." The first attacker came from Bruce's left. A large man with a chain wrapped around his fist, swinging in a wide arc aimed at Bruce's head. The chain whistled through the air, a sound that had preceded countless broken bones and shattered faces. It never arrived. Bruce moved. There was no other way to describe it. One instant he was standing still. The next instant he was inside the attacker's guard, past the deadly arc of the chain. His hand shot out, seized the man's wrist, and twisted. The crack of breaking bones was audible to everyone present. The chain clattered to the concrete as its owner collapsed, screaming. Clutching a wrist that now bent at an impossible angle, elapsed time. Less than 1 second, the second attacker was already committed, lunging forward with a switchblade aimed at Bruce's kidney, a killing thrust, delivered with the expertise of someone who had used that blade many times before. Bruce pivoted, allowing the blade to pass within millimeters of his body. His hand closed around the attacker's knife arm, and with a movement too fast to follow, he redirected the man's momentum, hyperextended the elbow, and sent him spinning to the ground. The knife skittered across the concrete, coming to rest 20 feet away. The attacker lay writhing, his arm hanging limp and useless. Elapsed time, 1.5 seconds. The third and fourth attackers learned from their predecessors' mistakes. They came together, coordinated, one high and one low. Attempting to overwhelm Bruce with simultaneous attacks from different angles, it was a street-fighting tactic that had worked countless times against countless victims. Bruce became a blur. He dropped beneath the high attack, his legs sweeping out to destroy the low attacker's base. As that man fell, Bruce was already rising, his elbow driving into the solar plexus of the high attacker with a force that lifted the man off his feet. Both attackers hit the concrete within a fraction of a second of each other, one gasping for air that would not come. The other, clutching a knee that had bent sideways, elapsed time 2 seconds. The fifth attacker froze. He was young, perhaps 19, and had joined the demons only 6 months earlier. He had seen violence. He had participated in beatings. He had believed himself hardened to the realities of street combat. But nothing in his experience had prepared him for what he had just witnessed. 4 of his brothers lay on the ground, disabled, destroyed by a man half their collective size. For hardened street fighters, armed and coordinated, had been dismantled in less than 3 seconds. The small Asian man now stood in the center of the carnage, not even breathing hard, his eyes fixed on the young gang member with an intensity that seemed to pierce through flesh and bone to the terrified soul beneath. The young man dropped his chain and ran down. His footsteps echoed through the warehouse district, fading into the fog, carrying with them any illusion that numbers or weapons could protect against what he had seen. He would never speak of this night to anyone. He would leave the demons within a week. He would carry the memory of those calm, terrible eyes for the rest of his life. Big M stood alone. His 5 soldiers lay scattered across the parking lot, groaning, weeping, trying to crawl away from the epicenter of their destruction. The man who had done this to them stood perhaps 10 feet away, watching Big M with an expression that held no anger, no triumph, only patient expectation. For the first time since his years in San Quentin, Marcus Thompson felt fear. But fear, in Big M's experience, was best handled with aggression. He had survived prison by attacking first, by being more violent than anyone expected, by channeling terror into fury. His hand found his knife, a 7-inch blade that had ended 3 lives and countless arguments. With a roar that was equal parts rage and desperation, he charged. Bruce Lee did not retreat. He watched Big M's approach with the calm assessment of a scientist observing an expected reaction. The knife thrust came, predictable in its trajectory, powerful in its intent. Bruce shifted his weight, allowing the blade to pass through space he no longer occupied. His hand guided Big M's arm, using the larger man's momentum against him. What followed was not a fight, it was a demonstration. 3 strikes delivered so quickly that they appeared to be a single movement. The first targeted the nerve cluster in Big M's forearm, causing his fingers to spasm open and the knife to fall. The second impacted his solar plexus, expelling every molecule of air from his lungs. The third swept his legs from beneath him, sending him crashing to the concrete with a force that would leave bruises for weeks. Before Big M could process what had happened, Bruce's foot hovered 1 inch above his throat. The gang leader lay on his back, gasping, helpless, staring up at a man who could end his life with a single downward motion. Total elapsed time from the first attack to this moment: 11 seconds. 11 seconds to dismantle 6 armed men. 11 seconds to destroy a reputation built over 3 years of violence. 11 seconds to transform predators into prey. "You came hunting tonight," Bruce said, his voice calm and measured. "You saw a small man alone and thought you saw opportunity. You were wrong. You found something else." Big M tried to speak but could only wheeze, his diaphragm still paralyzed from the strike. "I could kill you," Bruce continued. "All of you. It would be easy, perhaps even justified. You intended to hurt me, rob me, possibly worse. No one would blame me for defending myself with lethal force." He lowered his foot, stepping back from the fallen gang leader. "And it would cost me something I am not willing to pay." Big M finally managed to draw a shuddering breath. His hand moved instinctively toward his throat, confirming that it was still intact. "What?" he gasped. "What are you?" Bruce considered the question for a moment. "I am someone who has spent his entire life studying what the human body can do. Someone who understands that true strength is not in size, or numbers, or weapons." He tapped his temple, then placed his hand over his heart. "It is in here, and here. The mind that remains calm. The spirit that chooses when to act and when to show mercy." He reached down and, to the astonishment of everyone conscious enough to witness it, offered Big M his hand. The gang leader stared at the offered hand for a long moment. This man had just destroyed his crew, humiliated him completely, held his life in the balance, and now he was offering help. The contradiction was too vast for Big M's worldview to accommodate. Slowly, hesitantly, he grasped the hand and allowed himself to be pulled to his feet. "Why?" Big M asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Why not finish it?" "Because you asked a question," Bruce replied. "You asked what I am? The answer is, someone who chooses not to kill tonight. That choice is my strength. The ability to destroy means nothing without the wisdom to know when destruction serves no purpose." Big M stood unsteadily, his body aching from the brief but devastating encounter. Around him, his crew was slowly regaining their senses, pulling themselves upright with groans and whimpers. The most feared gang in this district of Oakland had been reduced to wounded animals in less time than it took to light a cigarette. "This territory," Big M said slowly, testing the words. "We will not bother you again." Bruce shook his head. "This is not about territory. I will not be here again. But consider what happened tonight. Consider what you learned. You believed that violence made you powerful. You learned that violence without wisdom is just noise." He began walking toward the edge of the parking lot, toward the fog that waited to receive him. "Perhaps use that lesson. Or do not. The choice, like all choices, is yours." He disappeared into the fog, his footsteps fading into the sounds of distant ship horns and the gentle lapping of the bay. Big M stood in the empty parking lot, surrounded by his broken crew, and felt something he had not experienced since childhood. The possibility of change, the recognition that everything he believed about strength and power was incomplete. A small door opening in a mind that had been locked shut for decades. The demons never operated in that warehouse district again. Within a year, the gang had dissolved entirely, its members drifting away to different lives, different paths. Big M himself disappeared from Oakland's criminal underground, surfacing years later as a youth counselor in Richmond, working with at-risk teenagers to steer them away from the life he had once led. When asked what changed him, he would tell the story of a night in 19. When he and his crew encountered a ghost in an abandoned parking lot, "We thought we were hunters," Big M would say, his voice carrying the weight of hard-won wisdom. "We thought we were the most dangerous thing in those streets. Then we met a man who showed us what real power looks like. Not the power to destroy, the power to choose. He could have killed all of us without breaking a sweat. Instead, he taught us a lesson and walked away. That moment saved my life. Not because he spared me, but because he showed me there was another way to be strong." The story spread through Oakland's underground like a whisper carried on fog. A small Asian man who could not be touched. A ghost in the warehouse district. A legend that grew with each telling until it became impossible to separate fact from myth. But those who were there that night, those who felt the concrete against their backs and saw those calm, terrible eyes, they knew the truth. They had encountered something beyond their understanding, something that transcended the simple mathematics of street violence, something that proved strength was not about size, or numbers, or weapons. It was about choice. And the man who could destroy you but chose not to was more powerful than any army. If this story inspired you to think differently about true strength and the power of mercy, do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that real power is knowing when not to use it. Leave a comment telling us about a time when choosing mercy proved stronger than choosing violence. We will see you in the next video with more incredible stories from the world of martial arts.